The Sporland division of Parker Hannifin Corporation is sponsoring this podcast. Sporland is the leading manufacturer of HVAC and R components. Using quality materials and craftsmanship, Sporland maintains a commitment to innovation, manufacturing excellence, service, and support for its customers since 1934. The company is known for its catch-all filter dryers, thermostatic expansion valves, solenoid valves, pressure regulating valves, suction filters, electric valves, controllers, supermarket monitoring solutions, chemicals, smart service tools, Zoom Lock Max Press to Connect, and Zoom Lock Push to Connect refrigerant fittings. If folks want to learn more, what do they do?
You can go to sporland.com.
I guess that's Jim and John for Sporland signing off.
Meet the newest Field Piece vacuum pumps and vacuum gauge. The HVAC-R Power Couple. Separately, they're amazing, powerful tools. Together, they are a force to be reckoned with. Offering a high level of speed and accuracy are game changers for the HVAC-R techs in the field. Our vacuum pumps, the VPX7, the VP87, and the VP67, are lightweight, portable, and feature 4 inline ports. Our wireless vacuum gauge, the MG44, has a no-slip grip and reversed angle coupler, which means it's easy to manipulate and install in the toughest spots. Visit us at fieldpiece.com. For more information, follow us on social media at Fieldpiece Products.
We've all been there, in the middle of a job, everything going smoothly, until boom, you're missing a part. United Refrigeration is your one-stop shop for all your refrigeration needs. Use your computer or smartphone to go to www.uri.com at any time of the day or night to check stock on your favorite brands, such as Copeland, Sporland, Carlisle compressors, Danfoss, Emerson CPC boards and sensors, Carrel, Hussmann parts, and K2Therm. United Refrigeration Inc. is home to these brands and many more. Looking for information on refrigerant conversions or refrigerant banking? Quick access links on the homepage can get you to the information you need. All approved accounts are able to see live-to-the-minute inventory and pricing. Product not in stock at your local branch? No problem. Use the Nearby Stock feature to find a local branch that does have what you need. Are you looking for a branch address, phone number, or after-hours number? That's all available as well. Just click on the branch locator and search for your local branch. Have a model number and looking for a replacement part? www.uri.com/ARP has a vast list of quick pick replacement parts. Just search for the model number of the equipment you're working on and click the Replacement Parts tab. If you don't have an account, click the Register button and we'll have you online in no time. With more than 400 locations in North America, each United Refrigeration branch is fully stocked for immediate pickup. Our branch employees have in-depth technical knowledge, so we can help you get what you need when you need it. Visit your local store or www.uri.com/ARP today. United Refrigeration Inc. has all your solutions down cold.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Advanced Refrigeration Podcast. You're here with your host, Brett Wetzel and Kevin Compass. What's going on, man?
Oh, just living the dream. Just, it's hot again.
Yeah, it was 114 in Texas, or feels like 114, which that's not meaning what the hell's on the roof.
Yeah, I had a semi okay day till my my tool bag got stuck against my bar door lock in the back of my van, and I can't get the back door open right now, and or to my tool bag. And if anybody's seen my van, there's like 900 pack outs on the side, and there is probably, I don't know, 35 microthermal boards and boxes of transducers and So I got to figure out how to tomorrow morning to get this shit out and somehow crawl my chubby butt back to the back and get my tool bag out from behind the door it's stuck on.
Gotcha. No, I'm down in Florida this week. They sent me down to do some Addison training. All they're going over is either make up your units where they're just trying to pressurize the building, get fresh air in there, and keep it at a certain temperature and dew point. For this one customer, I just found out they actually make a pseudo Munter style unit with a desiccant wheel. And I don't know. I've never seen one before. Apparently it was the one that they had out front was the one they actually had at AHR this year. So the class is all right. I learned a bunch. Tomorrow we start delving into controls, so that should be kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I never get to go to training.
I said because you know everything.
Shut up. I just get to train other people. I don't get to go to training. So,
you know what? This is the first training I've been to in a very, very, very long time.
Allegedly. Well, tonight I want to go over, since Brett wrote, I don't know again, even though there's a list. I want to go over rigging. Like, so lift rigging, meaning like not rigging things like I seen all today in these 30-year-old stores. I'm talking about rigging like picking up objects, compressors, fan motors, heavy loads on the roof. So talk about ways that I do it. Talk about ways that Brett did it, 3 years ago.
Shut the fuck up. Hasn't been that long.
Before you had somebody carry all his stuff up the roof for him.
You know what? That's the thing. You're actually, that's probably an accurate statement. That's probably an accurate statement. I'm not saying that proud. But at the point, my boss would rather have me run 600 calls than have to change out a compressor. And that was just facts. You know what I mean? I was more efficient doing, running calls than what I was if I had to change a compressor. I mean, I'm fucking old. My back is already fucked. I'm 40, almost 40 years old. And so things hurt and go numb and it's not fun. You'll find out when you grow up.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to avoid that.
Yeah.
So I just going to start this off. I learned a lot of this from Jeremy Smith. Like a lot of how I do things and the way I do things, I picked up from him and I tweaked it here and there.
Is that why you're like an old soul and kind of a curmudgeon?
No. I don't know what that second word means, but it's a little bit over Indiana for me. So I want to start with the first thing in pulleys. So simple pulleys, guys. I carry a simple 350-pound rated like single pulley in my truck. Like I have it on my actual rope that I use to rope things up the roof all the time. So everything that I use to pull my main rope, my 50 or 100, it's actually like a 75-foot rope I use to pull everything up the roof. So that way I could usually do, 2 drops down, 35-foot-ish, and I could do 2 drops down. So what I started doing is 2 things. I started using this pulley system, and I do a couple things with it. So you could attach the rope to the roof hatch ladder and or a ladder, and you tie off the one end of it, and you put the pulley in the center on the load. And now that pulley has reduced the load weight in half. So say a compressor weighs 200 pounds, and you hook the pulley up to it, and now you hook the rope up to an I-beam or something, and now you're pulling that load up. That load has been reduced by 100 pounds. It's cut the load in half.
So are you actually pulling up compressors with this rope?
Yeah.
I mean, like not like a 40 or something like that, but
like smaller compressors, like bigger scrolls, like I did
K45s or K54s.
I did a K54 with an apprentice the other day. I mean, this was kind of like a sketchy way to do it, but like it was done safely. It was 5:00 and there was an crane coming out, So what we ended up doing is I used my extension ladder. I tie off to the top rung. I push it up past the roof like 6 feet, and I hold out, had the apprentice like push the extension ladder out a little bit, just away from the building a little bit. And then I pulled up the rope. I tied off to the top rung. I pulled up the rope with the compressor on it, and the pulley was on there. So this was 205-pound compressor. So I pulled that 105-pound compressor up the roof by myself.
Wow.
With very little effort. Like, I mean, once I got up the top, I was kind of getting, a little tired, but like it pulled it right up on this Aldi roof like butter. I mean, because that pulley's on there. Now, the more pulleys you add, the less work it's going to take. So if you add a third pulley.
So where are you at? That's what I'm trying to envision this. Like, where are you tying off this said pulley?
So the pulley is on a load. So the load is clipped to the pulley. So, and then the rope makes a U. So you tie off the top of the ladder, and now you're pulling up the other side. So when you're doing that, you're shortening the rope up, and it's going up the pulley.
Okay, gotcha. I was trying to envision like what you were doing, and I couldn't place it.
I mean, that the pulley is a super simple rigging thing. I keep that on my rope all the time when I'm doing, like, say if I'm bringing the recovery machine up or I'm bringing a bunch of stuff up. Like, I will hook one side of the rope to the roof hatch, and I will use the pulley, and I will bring everything up the roof hatch that way. So especially if I have another guy with me, it makes it real quick. It makes it easier, and you're putting less stress on your body. So
at that point, couldn't you just hook it up to your damn van and just, instead of you being the force pulling it up, you could use your van for the leverage to get that up?
Yeah, I mean, you could. I mean, you would need a third pulley. You need a pulley at the top also, if you're going to do it that way. So if you do like a triple pulley where you have a pulley at the bottom and a pulley at the top, and now you're pulling from the downstairs, it's going to be even easier. It's going to cut that weight even more. And you can go to Harbor Freight and buy a block and pulley set for like $35.
You trust the Harbor Freight block and pulley set?
I'm going to be honest to you. Harbor Freight's like lifting stuff is pretty good.
Really? Okay.
I mean, for what it is, like their 550-pound chain falls or come-alongs, I beat the shit out of. Like I have broken one of them in 7 years, and I've done some pretty sketchy stuff. I mean, I've put those things through the ringer.
Yeah.
I mean, but their block and pulley set for like something, if you're doing something by yourself, like changing for example, like we have a couple double stack compressor rooms still with like single units. I mean, a double where you can't get a winch or something, that double block pulley like works out perfect. It's just heavy enough to pick up like a 2D and move it by yourself, or like say you need to move it in an emergency. That double block and pulley does like a huge, tremendous, advantage for you mechanically. And the other thing I want to bring up to you guys, like, so collect eye bolts as you're going. Like I collect eye bolts for like everything I find, like 3/8 eye bolts, 1/2-inch eye bolts.
Seven is it 17 or 18 millimeter for the Bitzers?
I think I don't know. They're always on there.
Oh, okay. I have a spare, so I have a lifting bag that now is property of the Dallas office, and because I didn't do a lot of compressors anyway, I'm like, well, just take the freaking bag. This is a bag that I've just collected stuff, whether it be yokes and C clips and whatever have you. I had a center pull chain that was adjustable on either side, so like if you hung it directly from the center, you'd have almost 4 feet on either side that you could hang. But like if you were putting something in on an angle, you could angle it up so you could have the compressor kind of, in one way or another. So you could shorten up one part of the chain and actually, make it, swing one way or another, just kind of put a little bit of a pitch to it. Obviously the chain fall, come along we had in there, and just a whole bunch of miscellaneous stuff. But I think I want to say it's either going to be 17 or 18 millimeter for the Bitzers.
I think it is. And then the big Carlisles, if I'm not mistaken, it's 3/4.
What? Really?
Yeah, it's either 1/2 or 3/4 for like the 06 cc's. That like it's like a boat anchor. So I carry a multitude of that stuff. So I have like a bunch of. I actually went out and bought. Well, I didn't buy it. I made the company buy it, but case hardened lifting eyes, like legitimate. not galvanized ones you go to Home Depot and get. Actual case hardened lifting eyes. Now, this is important, guys. The shorter the shank on that, the better. So what you don't want on a lifting eye when you're doing something is you don't want like 2 inches of space between the head of the compressor or whatever you're lifting and the actual eye, because that makes it weak. So you want the eye almost buried down in what you're doing. So, and then some washers there if you need to, because you want that eye flush against there because you want it tight. Because when you pull at an angle, you derate it. So say you pull at a 30-degree angle, it derates that eye. I think it's like 40 to 70% is pulling on there. It derates that eye rating. So that's why you want to get like some good case hardened stuff. I mean, lifting eyes aren't cheap or are cheap. I mean, they're not a super expensive thing, but it's not something you want to skimp out on.
The less the thread too, the better, right?
Yes. You want less threads. You want less space between whatever you're trying to do and that, and you want to put a nut on there so that way you could cinch down the nut and it keeps it tight. So that way you could screw it in the compressor and then you could take the nut and double tighten it on the head so it doesn't move on you. Now I keep in my truck, I have like a lifting box. I have a pack out set up for lifting, and in there I have all my eyelets and my clevises. Do not buy the shiny clevises from Home Depot. Go to like Tractor Supply Co. or Farm and Fleet and get some legitimate shackles.
Can they buy them from Maynard's?
Yeah, you can get them from Maynard's.
I just remember you talking about it. I was just curious, like, what other stuff they have. If they have some great stuff.
They actually have some big, decent shackles there. But, like, usually grade 8 stuff, like heavy-duty shackles. So I usually keep, like, 6 or 7 3/8, 6 or 7 5/16, and then a couple half-inch shackles. Now, like Brett said, chain is a number one must. Like, so I keep some quarter chain in my truck and some 3/16, I think, chain. It may be bigger. It may be those 5/16. So a quarter and 5/16 chain. I keep a 10-foot length of each. Now I use that for like what Brett said. So for offset and stuff, I may hang it from bar joists in the ceiling so you can get a good lifting point, and then a couple short straps. So I got a 6-foot strap, a 3-foot strap. Go ahead, Brett.
Do you do the what do you prefer? Do you prefer the ones that are one complete circle, or do you want like the ones that are basically one long piece of strap with 2 smaller circles on the end?
So all of the ones I have in my van that I use for like compressors and stuff are one complete circle.
Mm-hmm.
And then I do have 2 shorty straps that are I think they're like 10 inches with eyelets on the ends. So they and then I have 2 Harbor Freight 8-foot 2.5-inch wide lifting straps that have the eyelets on the end, or the loops on the ends. I don't use those very often. More so to like extend stuff, or if I'm doing something super sketchy, I'll break those out. But that's what I generally keep. And I keep it all in a pack out box. And then in that box, I have 2 550-pound come-alongs from Harbor Freight. Probably one of the best things that Harbor Freight makes is these mini come-alongs. So they're super short. So you could basically fit them on some unistrut in between the bottom of a rack and a compressor. Are
you talking about the ones that the handle's basically about a foot long, circle on the side for your little dolly that you have? Yeah,
but they're actually shorter. Like, so the handle's maybe like 6.5, 8 inches long. So
wow, that's small, dude. That's
5.5 inches from hook to hook when it's fully in. So I keep 2 of those in there, and then I have 2 unistrut rollers, and we'll get to the unistrut rollers a little bit later. But like and then I keep a multitude of nuts, bolts, and washers, square washers, and brackets in there, and then I keep it all in a pack out. So that way, whenever I need to grab it, I can just grab the pack out, throw it on there. If I'm doing a compressor, if I'm doing a motor, or if I'm doing some like heavy lifting, I'll grab that pack out, and I could just grab my winch or whatever I'm going to do and then use that. But that pack out's already all set up for all my lifting, and it all goes back in as soon as I'm done. So, and then also like with the mini come-alongs, I keep one of them in the truck that I took the hook off of. and I took the come along apart, and I snuck a 5/16 shackle through it. So the reason I did this is on the Super Plus racks, you don't get enough clearance between the compressor and my unistrut for my unistrut trolley system to actually get it in there. But with the shackle on there instead of the hook, you gain an extra 3 inches. So of lifting power. Now you can lift it up an extra 3 inches higher because you don't bottom out the come along. So I had really good luck with that. Now, so now I keep this in my truck. I have this unistrut. So we'll go over compressors. The way I change compressors is pretty much the same way, no matter what I'm doing. I have a unistrut trolley system. So I have a piece of 3-inch strut, grade 8 strut on my van. It's like 8 foot long. I keep it on top of my shelves. It slides up right on top of shelves, touches the cab divider, and it fits just enough where the door shuts. And then I have an A-frame that I made up. So what I did is I took a piece of unistrut and a unistrut base, and I made a tower basically up and down. And then I have strut in a triangle to make basically legs so it can't tip over. And then what I do is with this setup is, so one end gets all bolted together. Now, mind you, everybody says it takes too long to set up and yada, yada, yada. It takes me 10 minutes to set this thing up. And I can change the compressor by myself. I'm not killing myself. I'm not hurting myself.
I don't believe you about 10 minutes.
It is. It's like 10 minutes because the A-frame is already together. So all I have to do is drop 2 bolts into the unistrut base. Onto the trolley.
Onto the vertical for the 3-inch to the vertical, and then you're basically tying off the other portion of the 3-inch to the rack somehow using like a sandwich and thread rod, right?
Yep. So what I do is I sandwich it between the back rail of the rack, or I use chain. I mean, chain's not the best, but I'll drop strut down from up top with a rod, and I'll use that, and I'll sandwich it between the racks. I have yet to find a rack that I haven't been able to sandwich it between the back rail.
So one of your pictures that I saw you put up the one time, he actually has the sandwich portion where he basically, takes the thread rod, or I'm sorry, takes the 3-inch where he sandwiches in between, one of the supports, and he actually has notches in the secondary piece that he's using to sandwich it out of there. So when he's hooking up to, part of the framing, he doesn't have to damage a pump out line or typically an oil line or something like that. But I noticed that when you showed that on the internet there.
Yeah. So I have 2 different inside the pack out. I have 2 different cutouts. So I have one that is notched, and I just took a bandsaw and notched it. I use that for if it's got wires there, if it's got oil line, something like that. That way I can go around a line.
Question. How many pack outs do you have?
There's probably
like a guesstimation. I'm not breaking
20.
walls. I'm just,
if not more, 19 or 20.
You know the part number?
It's just the pack outs with the drills come in that I use for that. It's like it'd be the top portion. If you bought the 3-tier pack out, it'd be like the top portion.
The one that's like $50?
Yeah.
Good. All right. Thanks.
So that's what I use to put all that in. And then if it doesn't have like a notch or anything in there, I put a solid piece of strut. And then I already have the rods all pre-cut. So like I have rods that are 13 inches, 10 inches. I have rods that are 6 inches. I have rods that are, the full length of the pack out. So if I need to do something crazy, everything's already cut in there. And then the nuts are already on one side. So then I just got to tighten it up and then go. And then I'm good to go to start, slide his trolleys on, and I'm good to start lifting. Now, sometimes you can't get it with just the eyelets, and say if you have a really close rack, you may have to wrap the rear come along around the body of the compressor and pick up on it. But generally, if I position this correctly, I could pick right up on the compressor, and I could literally roll it right back out, drop it down onto a case dolly or something, take it off, grab a new compressor, pick it up, and roll it right back where it needs to go. I mean, the unistrut trolley system is butter. Like I've seen guys with the hydraulic jacks and the jack tables. I mean, to me, you're just asking to hurt yourself because the guys are yanking on the compressor, they're pulling it, it's not all the way close. Like I just don't think the jack table's like all that safe. I think it's just asking to like get hurt. And then you still have to get it on the bolts. If the bolts are fixed to the rack, like Hussman does sometimes where they weld the bolts on there, you still got to get it on the studs. With mine, you could literally pick it up and drop it right on the stud.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, that way you're not fighting it. You just drop it right. You drop it right in the studs. And then also, if I cannot use my trolleys.
Have you ever had it not fit anywhere? Is there a particular rack that they won't fit properly in?
The only racks I've had issues with is the Super Plus racks. It's fucking tight. The bottom of the cabinet, it's tight. And then the old Hill, what are those racks called? But they get the Atron valve.
I've the older Hill Phoenix racks.
Yeah, some of those they don't have any framing around them, and if they do, usually it's like so rotted out by then, it's not really the best. So what we generally do with that is we use a ladder or we use two A-frames. Like generally, because most of my guys do it the way I do it, so they have another A-frame in there. So we'll twin the A-frames together and just make like a gantry.
Oh, so you have a secondary A-frame that you use for the back in case you can't actually utilize it all the way through.
Guys I trained all have an A-frame in their truck from them making one from working with me, and they all have the unistrut trolleys. So generally, if I'm doing a compressor and it's like, oh shit, like this rack's not gonna work, like we'll just hook up two A-frames. Like we had a Hill glycol rack where there was literally nothing to really grab off of without doing a ton of work. So we ended up bringing in a second A-frame. And we were able just to span it, and we were able to hook up both A-frames. We get this giant ass 60 out like in minutes. So that's what I generally do. And I also carry a Warren Pulsall winch in my truck, which this little winch is amazing. The only downside of it that I hate about it is the cable's too short. It's only got a 15-foot cable, which is kind of screws you.
Oh, so you can't get all the way down to the ground when you're, all the way trying to pull up from the top. Where do you attach it to?
So, like, if I'm doing it in a compressor room where there's like nothing to really set up the A-frame on, like a single unit, I'll use the Warren Pulsall winch. I'll just tie it up to the bar joist or something with the chain and do that. I use it a lot for lifting stuff on a roof, but the problem is you get screwed on the roof because it's a tidbit too short. And Aldi, it works great, but so I will take an 8-foot ladder and I will put it over the roof hatch and put a piece of strut through the top with an eyelet, and I'll drop it down just about, I don't know, halfway with a strap or something. And then I will put a mini come along if it's not going to reach on there. That gives me an extra like 10 feet. And I will bring things up through the roof hatch like that. So like at Aldi, if I'm changing a bigger K5 compressor, I don't really need a crane because I'm already going to have a helper there. So I'll just use the roof hatch and an 8-foot ladder. An 8-foot ladder is rated for 300 pounds. The compressor's 220. So I will just winch it up with the ladder through the middle of the hatch with the Warren Pulsall winch. And then if I needed to extend it a little more, I'll just use the come along to pull it up the rest of the way. I'll shut the roof hatch, set the compressor right on top of the roof hatch, and then I can put it on a case dolly and just wheel it over to the rack.
Gotcha.
So like I use the Pulsall a lot for like stuff like that, like heavier motors, like a Munters motor is 15 horse. If you don't have like the Walmart winch and the winch arm in the back to get things up. So, I mean, that works really well.
No, I usually just, I guess it depends. Like even a K5 compressor, depends on how far I got to take it in. Like, if it's in the middle of the store or whatever, I mean, I'll opt for a crane all day long. Because sometimes, there's so many lines on those, especially if they're vapor injection, that it's just sometimes easier. But like I've had all intentions. I actually have the rails at my house. They're in my toolbox, and I got the threaded rod and the and the Unistrut, and I just never I never made it. Now I don't need to.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't done a compressor in a while. I mean, I actually take it back. I did one the other day, but I mean, I broke out the rig. But I mean, a lot of guys I train use the rig like that same way, and it's a lot easier. I mean, once you get to the habit of doing it, it's 10 more minutes extra. And what is 10 minutes besides like throwing your back out? It's tremendous. And then I've even gone as far as if I have block walls, like I've had a couple of places where I've shot shells in the back of a block wall and used the Unistrut mount and has mounted the rail to the back wall. So we've done some like crazy like lifts where like I've had to bring things upstairs. So, bringing compressors upstairs can get complicated. So you really don't want to drag it up the stairs because you can crack all the stair treads. So what we will do a lot is use 2 winches, and I'll use a winch picking it up in the ceiling, going up with it, and we'll use another winch pulling it forward, and we'll cantilever the compressor from the bottom of the stairs all the way up to the top and set it down.
Was that the one where you basically made a sled for the compressor and pulled it up how many flights of stairs?
No, that was that video just popped up on my
your memories.
My memories of us yanking it down the stairs with the Big Joe.
Yeah,
because we couldn't get it back down. It got stuck, and one of my buddies is on the Big Joe, just rocking the thing back and forth. Everybody's having that was a good day though. I mean, the compressor died like 3 minutes after we started it up. It was rod. It was great. It was a rebuilt compressor from National, so we already knew it was going to blow up. So I mean, everybody was fully aware of it, and everybody was just laughing. We called it. Nobody wanted to listen. So like,
it's funny you say that. So I was looking at a whole bunch of older pictures today, just pictures that I've taken over the years, and one of them was a compressor report on a Hitachi screw. And quick story. I basically put this compressor in, everything was ready to go. I even had the electrician come over because it was a rotary screw, and had him put on his phase, direction indicator to make sure that I had the phases going in the right direction, to make sure the compressor was going to go right in the right direction. And I started up, and it was I think it was Y delta start. So anyway, so it would go on. It would spin up like it was just about to ready to hit peak speed, and then it would pop a fuse and shut off. And this happened twice, and I was like, and I would check for grounds every single time, and nothing. And what I ended up having to do is pump down the compressor, remove the compressor from the system, just move the service valve over a little bit. And I had to I started megging the lines, and nothing was coming up, which was odd. So at first I thought it was maybe in the lines, and come to find out, there's a nut that typically holds, the stator on there. And I turned it, and it didn't short, turned it just like a half inch. And then finally, like about 7 or 8 times of doing that, getting it, to rotate all the way around, all of a sudden I found a short, and we sent the compressor back, said, you messed up something when it wound, or the bearings were bad or something. That they tried to say that I ran it backwards. I was like, no, absolutely not. But
yeah, I mean, generally with now you're going to be changing it again. It was fucked up because like this compressor had already been changed by another contractor. It was already a rebuilt compressor, so it was under warranty. So it came with like this like paper with it, like a startup thing, and then it basically was like a synopsis of how the compressor died before, and it was literally just shit talking like technicians. Like, this compressor came back and it had bad valve plates. This compressor could have been fixed with a valve plate kit if the technician would have just taken the time to properly diagnose the compressor and add a valve plate kit in. And instead it was returned for warranty, and it cost this much X amount of money. So it was like, it was the weirdest thing ever. It was like, and they've been sending them out with like all these compressors. It's basically like shit talking all of us.
But But here's the thing: if they're going to send a compressor in for warranty, you better make sure that it's, you know what I mean. That they don't care if you pull the heads off.
I mean, if I put a brand new pump in it and it chewed up the valve plates, and it was a rebuilt, and it chewed the valve plates up.
But the valve plates would be the technician's problem, not the compressor remanufacturer. No, how do you? No, you can't screw that up.
Yes, you can.
Well, I'm sure you could.
The rod cap's down enough. I mean, those compressors, I swear to God, they just literally clean them up, paint them, buff the cylinder walls out, and then put them back together.
They at least, from my understanding, from what I was told, I think at least they check the tolerances on the front end and the back end to make sure the bearings don't have to be changed. And if they don't, then if they're within tolerance, then from my understanding, they'll let it slide.
Yeah, so you're basically getting a giant pile of crap. Boat anchor, pile of crap.
So eloquently when you say that.
I have had more of those compressors explode, throw rods, or just ground out when I go to start them up on after a compressor change. That I refuse to put them in.
Are you sure it's not a you thing and not that?
It's definitely not a me thing.
You sure? My wife says that too. It's not me. I'm like,
It's definitely you. But yeah, back to this rigging thing. So like winches, like a Warren Polesall winch, it's like $220, and it's probably the best $220 you'll spend. Like I use that thing a ton, getting motors up, cinching up on stuff, getting stuff moved. I mean, it'll move half a ton.
Really? It just plugs in 120 or what?
120 plugs in. The controls are all on the handle. It's got a pretty good duty cycle on it. The Harbor Freight winch works too. I mean, we use that one a lot, but it is sketchy. Like I am just waiting for the day that clutch lets loose and just kills me. So like they're like, I think it's like a 1,300 pound winch. So yeah, that one we also use, but having the mini come-alongs on there and actually using like the eyelets, that is like absolutely killer. It makes rigging things so much easier. And then just like learning the block and pulleys, and then actually learning like knots and stuff, like learning how to tie knots. Like I didn't learn that until I was like 25, like how to actually like properly tie knots.
You weren't a Boy Scout?
No, I wasn't a Boy Scout. You seem like a Boy Scout.
Hey guys, today's episode is sponsored by Westermeyer Industries Serviceable Oil Floats. Many oil separators contain an oil float to effectively meter separated oil back to the compressors. Westermeyer Industries has taken this concept and perfected it with their new line of serviceable oil floats. These floats feature an improved design with fewer components, allowing for greater manufacturer consistency and up to 20% increased oil flow versus their legacy models. These floats also feature an integrated magnet to shield the oil path from debris and have been field proven in supermarket applications. Westermeyer Industries offer replacement oil floats not only for their own separators, but also cross-compatible models for our competitor oil separators as well. You can find out more about the Westermeyer Industries serviceable oil floats by visiting westermeyerind.com/floats. Once again, that's westermeyerind.com/float. Let's get on with the episode. Negative Red Rider.
But no, like learning how to like tie knots. Like I never really learned that. Like it wasn't like a thing I hardly did, but like learning different knots, like how to like do hitch knots and stuff, like it makes things a lot easier. Like when you're rigging stuff, like how to like properly do like knots where you're gonna pick up something, pick up say a piece of pipe, or like you're gonna try to swing something somewhere. You want to pick that pipe up to where it's like level and not swinging on you. Like learning how to like do knots and like actually like rig stuff that way. Or like actually like figure out the math behind things. Like, okay, like this end of this device is say 550 pounds. The other end's 250 pounds. Where do I need to put the shackle with the chain? Like to properly pick this thing up to where it's going to be picked up level.
See, I don't think I've ever used ropes to get anything up on the roof at all.
Really?
Yes, it's been. I mean, okay, so filters, tools, stuff like that. Yes, but as far as something mechanical, a condenser, a heat exchanger, it's always been chains. Like I'll find a place to pull it up, whatever I got to do.
Yeah, I know with Walmart it's been like a lot easier because like most of the stores up here have scissor lifts. So
Wait, okay, I thought you were gonna say the little what the hell, that little arm that's on the side for use for push it up.
Let me tell you, do not put a 4 or 6 cylinder bitzer on that arm.
I'm assuming it started to sway, bend.
So we went to go change the compressor, and same thing. Crane was kind of like dicking us around. So we got the Harbor Freight 1,300-pound winch out, which mounts on Unistrut. Well, what we do is we run chain through it and hook it to the crane, and then we just pull up on it. Well, that particular day was wintertime, and the wind was blowing pretty hard, and the chain slipped, and the winch went like sideways. And then the cable started yanking on the drum, and I almost watched this 6-cylinder compressor come right down on top of the apprentice's van.
Fun.
Yeah. So, yeah, that was it was too much for the arm. The whole arm was just like bobbing and weaving in the wind. Like whenever the winch would go around and it would skip off the next piece of steel wire next to it, it would just yank the arm.
You know what? I think what it is I did a job up in Connecticut, and we had to pull either a 4 or 60 up on a roof. It was one of the old school Husband, like late 70s, early 80s machine rooms that are on top of the roof, where they're like made of, I don't know, like fiberglass and like that bathroom wall material. And we were using the piece going off the side and trying to get this thing up with ropes. And I'm pretty sure, like, as we started getting it higher and higher, the arm started bending more and more. And I think that kind of just scared the shit out of me, because we barely got it up on the roof before the thing fucking let go. And we only know that because when we went to go put the other compressor back down, we did the Kevin thing and just chuck it off the roof. I mean, we didn't try. Like, we had it rigged up, but the arm fucking broke and just whoop.
It was going to chuck it off the roof, or you were going to chuck it off the roof. One of the two. It was getting off.
We were trying to do a controlled descent, and we're fairly unsuccessful. I think we made it about halfway down before it let go.
Yeah, I mean, try not to chuck things off the roof, but you'll have that. And then, like, for like rigging stuff too, like I keep a giant meat hook in my van. Like, I'll use for the rope too. Like, if I'm by myself, I'll use the meat hook and I'll clip it on my end of my rope, and I will grab stuff from the bottom of the ladder like that. Like, so I'll grab my torches with the meat hook. Like, it's enough where you can fish for it. Like, you grab the torches, you can grab like my tool bag. I could generally grab the reclaimer, the vacuum pump, all those. I could generally grab them with a meat hook.
So I've never gotten to work with you. So my question is to you, like, are you one of those cats that like basically brings up everything you could possibly need? Or do you like, I'll bring up the bare fucking minimum, and if I need some other stuff, I'll go down, but like I'm not going to bring my whole fucking van up. There's no way.
Yeah, I generally have to, but like, because I don't like walking back and forth. So like, generally the way I do it is, so say I'm changing a compressor on a rooftop on the roof. So I bring stuff up in stages. So in the beginning, I'll bring a torch up and all that stuff. And then when I'm done with the torch, because I like to screw myself, I take the torch down, and then, and then I'll grab like the vacuum pump and or the nitrogen, and I'll just keep doing it that way. Like, so if something comes up, something goes down. So I'll generally do it like that, unless I'm doing I think a time sensitive repair, like where I got to shut a CO2 rack down and I got to change something or do something. I will generally have everything up there where I could just grab it and finish it and then take everything down at the end. That's where the meat hook comes in by myself. It's a lot easier with the meat hook to grab it and drop it back down and then fish it back up. Otherwise, you're using 2 ends of the rope, and I mean, you end up you get 2 things down. You're like, shit, I got to go down and untie these, unless you're yelling at somebody downstairs to do it.
So another question: if you're, which you probably don't do or haven't done in probably about, I don't know, 5 years, is changing filters up on a roof. How do you like to get them all up on the roof? I mean, typically when you're doing filters, you do have another guy with you. You know what I mean? Because I mean, there's usually boxes and boxes and boxes. I'm a proponent for the old looping the end of the rope with a bungee strap. You know, that can encompass 2 big boxes, 24 by 24, so I can yank them up.
So they make like this filter box grabber thing now. It goes on the end of the rope. Like, I've watched guys do it. It is amazing. So like,
Really?
it is literally, it goes on the rope. You drop it down on top of the box. You yank, you pull up hard. The 2 like pins go into the side of the box, and you pick it right up on the roof.
Oh shit.
Yeah, I watched some guys at a Walmart do like they must have done like 40 boxes of filters in like 20 minutes.
Damn.
They were just yanking them right up the roof. Like, they had 2 guys up there with those arms. They were literally just grabbing them and pulling the boxes right up the roof.
When I did the water treatment for the cooling towers and stuff, part of my job was to also do filter changes. And we would make once every 3 months, we'd make a run all the way down to like Toms River, New Jersey, from like the Lehigh Valley area in Pennsylvania. And it would basically, we'd hit, I think, 15 stores within 48 hours, and just bang out as many filter changes as humanly possible. But, they didn't have the grabber arm.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, stuff like that makes your job a lot easier if you're doing stuff like filters and stuff. Getting that like arm, I think it's like $50 or something at the supply house. It was real cheap. So like using that to grab like filters and stuff, it's a lot easier. But like the meat hook is tremendously easier. And then a lot of times I will clip a pulley to the top of the roof hatch. I mean, this is kind of like, don't do something real heavy off of it, but I'll clip a pulley to the top of the roof hatch. And say if I have somebody with me and we're doing a bunch of stuff, like I'll have the apprentice down below. So I'll have the pulley at the top of the roof hatch with a clip through it on the lock thing. And then I'll have the rope looped through it, and I'll have the apprentice down below, and he's pulling the rope up, he's pulling down, and at the same time he's pulling the load up. So if like we're doing like a bunch of like stuff, we got to bring everything up real quick. So like he can pull down and bring that up real quick. I can untie it, drop the rope back down. Then the same thing, like he's pulling down on the roof, using the roof hatch as an anchor point. It's not the best thing to do. Don't like pick something up more than 50 pounds on it, but it makes things go quick because he can pull that load downstairs so much easier and bring things up so much faster than I can. And it's a lot less stress because I'm not pulling up. He's pulling down. It's a lot easier to pull down than it is to pull up.
Gotcha. What do you so up on the top of the roof, what are you connecting it up to?
The lock hasp on the top of the roof hatch.
Oh, okay.
So like on the bottom where they would put the lock through, I generally make sure like the locking arm on the bottom's good. It's usually, if I see the roof hatch like twisting, like I know it's got too much weight. But yeah, don't put a compressor up there or like a giant motor. But
one of the worst ones I ever had. I don't know why they do this, but like when they put the ladder on the opposing side of what the hinges are for the roof hatch, where basically when you're opening up, you have to try to crawl out back.
I'm pretty sure that is illegal.
No, I understand that, but I'm just saying I've had it. I've seen it a couple times where you're basically walking the wrong direction. Because it didn't get caught when the guy did a survey on the roof, I guess. I don't know.
How drunk was the roofer when he put that hatch in?
No freaking idea. I have no idea. I just know it was a pain in the ass to try to get out of that, off that ladder onto the actual roof.
Yeah, everybody who fell out there, that grocery store would be like, oh, well, he shouldn't have gone up there. That's an OSHA violation.
Yeah.
But
I walked into 7-Eleven the other night, and they had a whole bunch of kids scraping stuff off a ductwork, standing on a chair while on the register.
Seems like 7-Eleven to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, so using ropes and stuff like that, guys, with the meat hooks, anything you could tie off to, I generally try to find anything to make my job easier. Like even doing like motors and rooftop units. So like we did a big 50 horse motor in a rooftop unit the other day, and it was in the center of the building. So getting a crane, it would have taken 350-ton crane. Store would have had to shut down because it would have had to be right in the dead center of the street and the store. So instead of doing that, it's not the best thing. We drilled a hole to the top of the rooftop unit, put a piece of unistrut 10-footer across the top of it, and we used the unistrut trolley to bring the motor inside the rooftop unit. And then we just sealed the hole with butyl and Elastibond tape, which is never going to come off.
That sounds super sketchy.
It worked amazing. Well, it's on the frame of the rooftop, and then we put down bars on the strut, so it was actually pushing down the roof too. But I mean, we were able to get that motor in there, and we were able to do it like effortlessly. Like it took more effort to pull the motor over there on a case dolly than it did to actually get the motor up into this rooftop and then in place, because we used the come-alongs and the unistrut to get it in place. Like I will generally, I have been able to build that unistrut to whatever it needs to suit. Like if I need to make the center section 10 feet tall, I can just switch it all out. It's like building Legos. So I could build that to suit whatever I'm doing. And that's how I end up doing it. Like the base is just the base. Like it's in there. Like I have tons of unistruts, the clamps and stuff in my truck where I can modify that to whatever I'm doing. So we did like a Costco change out. We did 21 scroll compressors in 3 days. We changed from scrolls to Bitzers. We literally just moved that thing down the line. You know, we had it all set up. We were literally just picking up scrolls, grabbing them by the center of the belly, rolling them out, dropping them down, picking up the Bitzer, welding the bolts to the bottom while it was in the air, dropping the Bitzers on the rack, welding the strut down to the rack, and then go to the next one, grab the scroll off. It was like an assembly line.
That was this year, wasn't it?
It was last year. It was the worst job I've ever been a part of.
Dude, I find that amazing because like when I first started doing that was probably almost 10 years ago when Costco started doing that, where they, you know, pulled off all the Copelands and replaced them, replaced them for, it was, they're Copeland scrolls, right? And you converted them to Bitzer semis, right?
Yep. Yeah, they're still out there, unfortunately. There's still a couple. I surveyed a store the other day that had them. But yeah, we were able to, like, assembly line, push that thing down the row. Like we just literally moved it, undid 2 bolts, push it out the way, slam it up underneath the next compressor, tighten down 2 bolts, and then on the clamp, and we're good to go.
So because you're union, do you actually have millwrights actually move the shit around, or do you have fitters do it, or what do you do?
What do you mean move? What do you mean move stuff around? Like, what do you mean?
So when I worked industrial, a lot of times like they would have millwrights come and rig shit out and move stuff out.
No, that's all fitter work. So like all that rigging is pipe fitter work.
Yeah.
Well, but it's a gray area. It's like if you're industrial up here, it's split 50-50 between the pipe fitters and the operators.
Okay.
Because technically, if you want to get real technical with it, it should be the operators, because they're the ones running the crane. So, I mean, but with us, like we generally, like all our pipe work, all of our stuff, that rigging is all our responsibility. Like they have like rigging classes. Our union has rigging classes. Like that's where I learned a lot of this at. Like I learned a lot from Jeremy Smith, and I learned like a lot of the math side of it from learning out like angles and stuff, like in the safety stuff from like the rigging classes, like not pulling on like angles on eyelets, angles on same thing with like hooks, pulling on angles from like hooks. You're derating them. They are all made for straight pulls, up or down. They're not made for sideways pulls. If you pull it like 30 degrees, you derate the pulling eye by like 70%. So that's why you want like heavy duty hardware. Same thing if you have a hook. If you see a hook starting to bend, that means that hook will fail before that come along chain will, or the clutch on the come along. That hook will start to fail. It'll start to open up. When you see a hook opening up, you know it's about to fail.
Yeah.
So like that's the the failure point there. You don't want it to get where it's going to break the clutch and a come along, and then it's going to drop the load completely.
And then you're going to have a bad time.
Yeah. I mean, even like we did a screw one time, and I got a little sketchy with it because it was in a real shitty spot. We had to pick this thing up, and we had to rotate it 30 degrees. So we had to pick it straight up, and then we had to rotate it 30 degrees to get it around the oil line.
Oh, fun.
So we did that, and we were able to rotate it. I had shells shot in the ceiling, and so I had take my SDS and I shot shells in the ceiling, which I have a ton of shells in my truck for that very reason. We shot shells in the ceiling, and then we had eyelets in the ceiling, and I had a come along up there, and we rotated the compressor that way. Except for when we let the tension off, it flipped all the way 180 degrees. This Carlisle screw flipped 180 degrees. And thank God I had a safety chain on it because it almost ripped the whole strut tower down. Because, I mean, the Carlisle screw is heavy. You're talking
you would have went from changing out a compressor to fixing a catastrophe of piping.
Well, it was clear at that point. So like it was almost to the end of the strut tower. So it was clear of the rack. And we were letting it down to try to rotate it back the other way. And the kid that was doing it let the come along out too fast, and it tipped the opposite direction. But like, yeah, I mean, stuff like that, like shells are a huge thing. Like, don't be afraid to shoot shells in concrete. I mean, those things will actually hold a lot. I've watched fitters shoot shells in concrete and pick up 14-inch, black pipe, runs that are like 60 feet long with shells in concrete and I mean, come-alongs. I mean, look at how they mount that stuff in big buildings. I mean, that's all shells and concrete.
Look at the spec, man. That's all you have to do. Basically, try to figure out. And I think the way it typically goes, if you have like one shell in there, and let's just say you're pulling from that one, it might be a total of 100 pounds. But if you put two in like a piece of unistrut for something to pull off of, it might increase that weight by at least double, right?
Yeah, I mean, it all depends, and it all depends on the concrete strength too. But like generally, like always go safer than sorry. You want to double it, you want to triple it, you want to be way over the weight rating that thing's rated for. So if you're picking up 1,000-pound load, you want like 2,000 to 3,000 pounds of whatever you set up your lifting with. You want to have that rating factor in there for when you screw up, it doesn't like try to kill you.
Yeah, killing you isn't fun.
No,
at all.
Same thing with like the porta pack racks on the weather packs on like the Walmart roofs, like the Hill Phoenix weather packs. Same thing with the Target racks. So we've been able to use the unistrut trolley in those. Like we generally have to change out the vertical beam and put a 10-foot piece of strut there, and then all we have to do is all those racks have the same Target. They all have the same frame in there, so it's like they all copied each other's design. But I generally take a drill, a 3/8 drill bit. I drill a hole in like the framing of the rack. I just run a piece of all thread through, and I hang it that way. So I'll just hang it from all thread, and then I'll through both sides of it. So that way it's just hanging off all thread on one side. And we're picking up scroll compressors. We're not picking up 4Ds. And I could generally change those scrolls out a lot easier, because those big scrolls at Target are on a low temp rack are tanks. I mean, they're heavy. I mean, you could easily blow your back out with that.
Yeah, I think we had to replace 2 or 3 in a night. So I don't remember what happened. I don't know if it was electrical storm where the phase loss monitor just didn't pick up what it was supposed to or whatever, but it ended up frying like 2 or 3 of those compressors, and then in turn caused a lot of dirty refrigerant and oil and a whole bunch of freaking cleanup. Yeah,
I mean, and then like the porta packs at like Walmart where you have like Carlisles in there. Mm-hmm. We've been able to. Hill Phoenix generally has an angle iron running across the very front track of the rack.
Yeah,
I generally I use the deep channel strut, so the unistrut rolls through there. But I will take and I will mount it on that angle. I'll drill up through the ceiling. I'll mount it on that angle, and I'll just sandwich it between the top of the rack with like a unistrut washer or a piece of strut. And then I'll use it'll have like 3 feet on the other end where it's not supported, but it's supported in the middle. And
how tall is your vertical? That you're basically your tripod. How tall is that?
it's 5.5 feet. And then I can switch it out to a 10-footer if I need to. So if I know I'm going to do a compressor where it's 10, I need like the full vertical, like I'll just order a piece of strut with a compressor. And then.
So you don't have that. So let me just get this straight. You don't have that centerpiece actually welded onto there, right? You're okay. So even the supports that you have going sideways, those are bolted to there as well, correct?
Only the triangle at the bottoms are welded. So I had them bolted for the longest time, but then I bought a welder for no reason, and I welded the bottom supports so that way the triangle. So basically, all I got to do is the top and the bottom of the triangle where the two pieces meet. At the top, that gets through bolted, and then the bottom where it meets on the strut foot gets through bolted. So I have a unistrut base foot, I think it's like a 5-inch by 5-inch base. So that gives it the solid base, and then the triangle keeps it from tipping from side to side, which we'll post a picture of it, how I set it up and do it. But yeah, I've had nothing but like positive stuff with that thing. I haven't found a situation where it screwed me. I mean, it's always like done solid, except for when we were taking the condensing units out of the room at this old store, and one of the fitters picked up a entire condensing unit with my winch and the unistrut trolley, and the unistrut failed.
How big was the condensing unit?
Oh, it had a 3D on it.
Oh, all right. So kind of heavy.
And a 2-fan condenser.
Really heavy. Okay,
yeah.
Gotcha.
And it was 31 years old. So
boat anchor.
Yeah, it was built, in the like 60s, 70s.
As Kevin would say, just throw it off the fucking roof.
Oh, they threw it off the roof all right. It came crashing down the back of the stake bed.
Ooh.
Yeah. I looked at him I went, oh, I just seen this unistrut. Like, I mean, this was 3/8 grade 8 unistrut, or 3-inch grade 8 unistrut, which is, I mean.
I was about to ask, what's the limit on that?
I don't remember offhand. I used to know this, but it depends on the grade of unistrut, but it's way heavier rated than any compressor we're going to change, but not that 70-year-old condensing unit.
Just not heavy enough for condensing unit.
Well, I mean, in the way they did it, they kind of shoved it out the door, and yeah. It was not our best and brightest. So yeah, I mean, just be careful and know like the weight ratings, what you guys are using. Don't use galvanized strut. Always get the green strut or the grade 8 strut. Don't ever use galvanized. That stuff is weak. It's made for hanging light duty stuff, not doing heavy lifting. So that stuff will bow pretty quick.
If you were to invest in, I'm going to say this, and I'm going to feel like an asshole if I'm wrong. Did they have stainless U-strut?
Yeah. And
would that have a higher tensile strength where it'd be a little bit stronger?
I would think so, but like it's super, super expensive.
Yeah. Well, you wouldn't need it for the verticals. You would just need it for the the through piece, right?
Yeah, I've had to cut my through piece so many times that like I wouldn't want to do that. Like, because like there's times like where you get where they sandwich 2 racks together and there's 10 feet behind them on each side, but they put the racks, where you can't even spread your arms apart across them. So like, yeah, you may have to take the beam, and I may have to cut it in half.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's been times like that's why it's all customizable. If I cut it in half, then it stays there, and then I just order a new piece of strut.
Gotcha.
So, all right, guys, that's it for rigging. If you want us to go over more to it, we will, and we'll just put some pictures of my rigging setup on there, and the way you guys can see it. Have a nice night, guys.
All right, later, guys.
Just when you think this show is terrible, something wonderful happens.
What?
It ends.